along with my co-host, Susan Solomon.
Hi, Lillian.
Executive Director of Drug Crisis in Our Backyard. Please welcome Kelly Cartenuto. She is a case-actee, a mom, a person in long-term recovery, and recently worked on the campaign to stop the legalization of marijuana in New York State. Welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you
for having me.
A lot of titles.
Wearing a few hats.
That's it.
Yep.
So talk to us about the campaign to stop the legalization of marijuana in New York State. And the results were, the outcome?
Well, we won.
There
we
you
won
go.
the campaign. There's going to be no commercial weed for sale in New York.
this year.
That's how I put it. Yeah, this year.
This year.
Hopefully not anytime soon. It was a really exciting time and high pressure. It was tight. You know, we up until the end we weren't really sure how it was going to go. So, but I really enjoyed it a lot. Yeah.
So tell us about the campaign itself. I mean, you know, you have both sides, legalization
Yeah.
and not to legalize. So tell us, what was your push or the reason that you don't want legalization?
Or the organization
Or the organization.
that you worked for.
I worked for SAM New York, and SAM is Smart Approaches to Marijuana, and New York is its New York affiliate. And I was hired to be a field organizer, kind of a community organizer, and I talked and worked with people all over the state, got them involved in connecting with their legislators, even legislators that weren't theirs, working together. Everything you do in a campaign to stop a bill from passing. And there was a bill in the Senate and the Assembly to legalize the commercial sale of marijuana, and including edibles. And I don't want that for my community. I don't want it for New York. I knew years ago when I watched Colorado and Washington and Oregon legalize marijuana, I got very scared then. I knew this is coming. And I'm a recovering marijuana addict myself.
Okay.
So I said back then, you know, if this shows up in New York, I'm going to be out there with the sign. Like I just knew in my heart that I would stand up against that.
Yeah.
And then I was given the opportunity to work for an organization who spearheaded the campaign and does the same all over the country.
Yes, and they do a great job. Actually, they're very vocal about it. So, what were the defenses against legalization? We know some of the proponents that want to legalize it and why they want to legalize it. So why is SAM so against legalization of marijuana?
Well, I think anybody, myself included, and I speak now from my own viewpoint. I no longer work for SAM, so anything I say, you know, things I give you is just my own viewpoint, which matches a lot of what they stand for. And I would say maybe the number one reason is when you legalize a mind-altering substance that you've told people for years, you know, is illegal, you're going to have harm. There's going to be perception of harm reduction. So in other words, young people are going to think this is safe now, and mom and dad are doing it, I'll do it too. Whereas it's, you know, for many years now, illegality actually keeps people from doing it. I think 30% of the population will not choose drugs, illegal drugs, because they are illegal. So then what happens to that 30% of the population when it comes to this drug? It's like, oh, they're going to try marijuana. So there's the fear of that, that will send the wrong message to children. It was an adult use bill that was presented. They were going to sell to over 21. But we've seen this before with other things, with alcohol and tobacco. Kids always get their hands on it, and so that was one. Is what's this going to do to our kids? And a lot of people stood up against the bill who care a lot about kids, like the executive director of the PTA. She was huge in this, and so the PTA, all these organizations that work with children, the School Superintendents Association,
That's great.
the PTA. We had all these large state groups that were on our side.
Right.
How about the UFT? Did they have a position?
The teachers union?
Yeah.
Yeah, they did. I didn't work with anybody from that group, but yes, they were on the list. The
Okay.
Contractors Association, the State Sheriff's Association, the Police Chiefs
right,
Association. So we had all these big
Right.
associations and agencies in the state that were, it's problems for law enforcement, problems for teachers and parents
right.
and schools, and they knew. So they stood up with us. So definitely worrying about future generations was, and our current generation, young generation, was part of it. For me, also knowing that when you make something more available, you're more likely to have people get addicted to it. And traffic accidents as well.
Yeah.
I think the idea is that when something becomes legal, people are going to use more of it,
Right.
and then it becomes in society more than we want it to.
Like alcohol.
Like alcohol.
And like vaping.
And
Yeah,
like vaping.
vaping.
That's
Right.
right.
There's no right.
And people are
It's a-
vaping marijuana
That's right.
now too.
Right.
Yeah.
And there's no controls. I mean, you can't buy anything until you're 21. Doesn't stop young kids from getting their hands on it. So
Right.
what makes them think that legalizing marijuana is going to be different?
Right.
They were going to be able to control that.
Their argument is a lot of it is civil liberties. It's just alcohol's legal, so this should be too.
Right.
Then
To me,
there's
that
yeah.
that doesn't even make any sense. I mean, just because
Yeah.
it's just because alcohol is legal, so then why don't we legalize all drugs?
Right.
Let's just legalize all drugs.
Right.
I mean, it doesn't. The arguments I've heard about it are just they didn't make any sense. And
Right.
Lillian and I work in the schools sometimes, and what we know the damage has already been done. The kids think that it's legal already.
That's right.
That's right.
And it's
well, in New York
harmless.
City, they noticed. I lived in New York City for 4.5 years at the beginning of the new millennium, so 2001 to 2005.
Okay.
And it was a completely different landscape than it is right now. And I think what happened is as soon as other states in America started legalizing,
Right.
people got more out with their pot use in the city. So now you smell it
Right.
everywhere. My husband tells me that, he parks his car and walks a few blocks to get to work. Between the car and work, he's smelling it 4 or 5 separate times on a short walk,
Right.
separate times. So that tells you that the attitudes
Right.
Right.
around
That's
it have changed
That's right.
since, I think especially since the beginning of legalization
Right.
in the United States.
And also, when you see what's coming out of Colorado, Washington, Seattle, Washington State, Colorado, California.
Yeah.
Don't we look at that? Don't we listen to the statistics, the numbers of kids eating the edibles
Right.
and being
that's
in
what
emergency
Sam,
rooms?
That's
right.
what Sam does. They study all of this. And yes, children and adults going
Right.
to the ER, eating too much edibles, eating any edibles, getting sick.
Right.
That's gone up. Traffic fatalities,
Right.
traffic accidents have gone up. Colorado is really a big test tube for this because it's been, was it 2012 or 2013?
About
It's
5
been a
years
number
now?
of years
Right.
now.
Okay.
We can really look at what's going on there in Oregon and Washington. And I know that Seattle, there's a report about Seattle, more people are going to work under the influence.
Yeah, of
That
course.
was,
Why
that was in
wouldn't
the
you?
news. Right.
That's right.
Right. So that's why, for instance, the New York State Contractors Association said,
Right.
we don't want legalization.
Right,
We don't
we'll be
have
on
to
top
worry
of
about
that.
our...
That's
That
buildings.
skyscraper with
Right.
one of those
Right.
cranes.
Right.
Right.
Or driving the train or a
Right.
bus.
Right.
Yeah.
Wait, as I went through this for myself, there was the list of reasons to not
Right.
make marijuana more available just became bigger and bigger and bigger. And it just seemed like insanity. And I started with very personal reasons. My reasons were very personal. When I read about what's happening in Seattle, the news report I read about people going to work under the influence also said how much you can smell it in the city now. I can't handle that. And I know there's some recovering people who can handle
Right.
being around that smell. I can't.
Right.
And so I think that's why I had the reaction I did when Colorado did what it did. I was like, is this going to be in my neighborhood? Because I live I live in Lake Peekskill, I live in a kind of a country setting, woodsy setting, rural, sort of rural suburb, and it, very clean air and whatnot. And so, but now what's happened is now the list is growing of places where I would have to think twice about visiting. I'd have to have a really important reason to go to places where you walk through the streets and you smell marijuana, including the Big Apple.
Right.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean I won't go to these places. I'm not likely to isolate or be like that, but it bothers me because I know the smell bothers me.
Right.
And it triggers me.
Yeah.
Gets me angry. It then becomes, the more it's around me, the more of a temptation it is. I used to have a very intense relationship with that substance, so it's better if it keeps its distance from me.
Right.
And I think that's a voice that you didn't hear much.
That's right.
Right.
That you hear it all, really. I feel like I'm in some ways the lone voice on this one. But I know I'm not alone.
Right.
I'm just not talking with other people that have that experience and that perspective.
So how about the decriminalization? What does that mean? Because that passed, right?
Yes, it did.
Yeah.
We supported that. Yeah, it was really great that they came up with that in the last week. Assemblywoman Peoples-Stokes and Senator Bailey wrote an enhanced decrim bill, or put together an enhanced decrim bill that we, SAM New York supported, and because we don't want people going to jail.
Right.
And we did like the idea of. I like the idea of people getting their records expunged or sealed so it doesn't ruin their life if they've been arrested for marijuana. It's a compassionate, thing.
Right.
And so we'll see how that gets played out. I mean, the bill's only as good as it's enforced or implemented.
Right.
So that's really up to law enforcement. Law enforcement has to be willing to evolve, and do what the law says. And so. I don't know the exact details of it.
And when does that go into effect, the decriminalization?
Oh, that's a good question. I'm thinking in next year.
2020?
2020?
Yeah,
I'm not sure. That's good.
Some bills are immediate, but some bills are not. They're usually stated in the bill.
I wish I had an answer for you.
Okay.
I don't have an answer
All
for
right,
that.
probably 2020.
That all kind of happened at the end of the
Right,
campaign, and one of my volunteers, I asked her to do some analysis of the bill for us, or for me, so I can see what's really involved. There was some talk of public smoking being more permitted, or so, and of course that bothers me, but there has to be some compromise, I think, when it comes to this. Not having pot shops in Mohegan Lake, 10 minutes from my house is important. So yeah, I'm actually pretty happy about the decrim bill because the social justice issue was brought up so much.
That's right.
Everywhere, and I want there to be social justice.
Right.
I want there to be criminal justice, and I don't want people going to jail for small amounts of marijuana. I don't want anybody's lives being ruined, people losing their kids, their jobs. That's not necessary.
Right.
Compassionate approach, treatment, finding other ways to help people. Getting a fine or a ticket,
Right. That's right.
is a much more reasonable approach
Right.
to something like that. Yeah.
Right.
So we'll see how that gets implemented, and I wish I had that answer for you on when it's going, and we'll find out.
I'll
get back to you on that.
Let us know.
Yeah.
Right, so we'll have that information.
Definitely. Yeah.
So what is CBD oil? Because we're hearing so much about
It's
CBD
all over.
oil. And
CBD oil, cannabidiol is I'm not sure if I pronounced it right. There's two chemicals in marijuana that we know the most about, THC and cannabidiol. And the oil that's made from CBD is the part of the substance that's not, doesn't get you high. THC is the part that creates euphoria. It's the part people really get addicted to, I think. In too much levels can create paranoia and things like that. The cannabidiol is the part of the drug that sort of mellows that out. Together, they're safer than one without the other.
Okay.
There's products out there now that are just THC and they're more dangerous.
Right.
CBD has medicinal uses.
Okay, it
And
does.
so CBD oil has some potentials, and people are using it, or CBD in tincture or
Right.
cream,
Right.
or in various forms for anti-inflammatory purposes, for sleep, some simple everyday medicinal purposes, and it's exploded
Yes.
Yes.
On the 4th of July, I was at a picnic nearby. I met a gentleman from Utah, an elderly gentleman from Utah. He's got a CBD business. And I asked him about his products because if the CBD product has trace amounts of THC in it, it's not pure. If you get drug tested, it's going to show up.
Right.
And we're seeing problems like that.
Okay.
Right. So, in fact, there's a lawsuit. There's
Oh.
I know of at least one lawsuit with a truck driver who's suing because he used a CBD product for pain. He's like he drives an 18-wheeler or something like that, and he gets regularly drug tested. So he got tested, and THC showed up, and I think he lost his job.
That's a wreck.
Yeah. So these are the kinds of problems we're going to have if CBD doesn't get properly regulated.
Right.
I think the FDA is finally getting involved, and there's been some hearings, and so hopefully we'll see some transformation in that. But right now, you could buy something that says CBD on
And
it.
you don't know what's in it.
That's
really.
true.
You don't know what's in
If there's no ingredients, a
Right.
label with ingredients, how do you know it's not some other analgesic
That's right.
that's
Right.
taking away your
That's
pain?
right.
So it's it's a little wild west
Right.
on
Yeah.
the CBD right
Right.
now.
Right.
And we need to change that. And there's some odd things happening with it where it's being put in foods and cafes.
Yep.
Yeah, that's what I've
Looking
seen
with
that
it,
too.
they're
Right.
advertising.
And beverages
That's
and
right.
foods, right? I think it's a hip thing right now. It's like it's the it thing to get, to consume or use. It's just has a popularity explosion. So
So we invested in
see.
the wrong business.
Invested in the wrong business. Should have been CBD oil.
Where's that CBD oil
That's
business we
it.
were going to start?
That's
Okay.
it. That's it. We're in the wrong business. We're on the other end of the spectrum.
Right.
Helping people get clean and sober.
but then who's going to be sued? Seriously, in that case, who's going to get sued? It's you are taking risks when you get involved with a product people are consuming or
Right.
using, and
It's not regulated.
And
You
it-
don't know what you're using.
we need good regulation on it.
And I
And
don't-
until then,
Right. But it's
could be
out
risky.
there. It's out there.
Yeah.
And people are using it,
Yes.
using something.
Right.
And it's just, you know what? When you talked about decriminalization and the laws, we think about hope, not handcuffs that you're involved in.
Yes.
And we
Yeah.
are moving in a more, I want to say humane, and I don't know if that's the right
Yeah,
word.
that's good.
Yes.
Yeah, more humane way to treat people who suffer from this disease of addiction. You want to talk just 2 minutes about
Have
it?
you
So-
heard of Hope Not Handcuffs?
I think I have. Yeah.
Okay, so it is a program that that is a community-driven program with the police in that county, and the police. The police will advertise that someone that has a substance use disorder problem or is smoking pot or using substances can come into the police station. They will not get arrested. They can drop their drugs off, and someone, an angel, will come and be with this person and help them get into a facility right then and there.
Right.
So that's happening in Orange, Dutchess, Rockland.
Columbia.
Yeah.
Too. I met a sheriff
Okay.
from Columbia County who started it something like that there.
Pete
And
Folkman?
I can't remember his name.
Okay, so-
he's a pro legalization person. That's
was
how
he?
I met him. He was
Wow.
on a Start Smart panel.
Okay.
That's how I met him. But he does that
Yes.
at his police station.
So there are several programs out there.
Yeah.
So the one that we're involved in here in Putnam is Hope Not Handcuffs, and there's more to come on it, and we'll send you emails on it. But
Fantastic.
basically, it's the police helping community members get into treatment.
Right.
That's really what it boils
Instead
down
of
to. So
arresting.
so it's a
Right.
different thinking on the part of the police.
Right.
That we're not. These people that come in, they're not criminals.
Right.
They have a disease.
They're sick.
They're sick,
need
and
help.
they need help.
It's a health issue.
Yes, it's a health issue, exactly. So
I think we'll need more like that. With decriminalization, we will need more like that.
Yeah.
More groups, organizations that do that kind of thing to help the police.
right, to help the police, because
right.
the police can't handle. They can't.
right.
First of all, they can't handle all the people that are getting arrested, and so if people want help, it behooves everyone involved to help them get the help they need,
Absolutely.
rather than being in jail
Right.
and coming out and then being in jail again.
Right. You
That's how
can't-
European
right.
nations have handled it. You know,
Yeah.
that's
Because we can't
definitely the
incarcerate
path
the
they take.
problem, and that's what we've done.
Right.
We've incarcerated
That's
the
right.
people. Let me say it.
That's
We've
right.
incarcerated them.
Right.
Yeah.
But even those statistics, you know, I've learned aren't as quite as bad as they might seem. You know, I think the pro-legalization folks would have you believe that, you know, everybody with small amounts of money are getting locked up.
Right. Lots.
It's, you know, there's a lot of propaganda out there. And I think one of the things I learned during the campaign was the culture of use and how it impacts. So for instance, you have a Latino neighborhood, Black neighborhood, and they're getting more arrests or problems there. That may be, it could be racial profiling, or it could be the neighbors are calling the police. And I think you get a lot more, when you talk to the police, you get a lot more calls from those places. And the culture of use is different. You know, somebody in a apartment dwelling neighborhood, for instance, they don't have a finished basement to get high with their buddies, like, you know,
be
a
out on
more
the street.
suburban, wealthy white neighborhood would. They're out on the corner because that's where else do they go? They're in the park. So it's good to look at all the pieces of this instead of just, I don't like when I see something in the news or when a statistician paints this very black and white picture. Okay, this is a racial problem, you know, Black and brown people are being arrested, we have to legalize so that that stops. It's more complicated than that.
Much more. And that was really a smokescreen.
Right. That's right.
Yeah.
To
Because
stop people.
because they, when you go back and look at, and Kevin said this,
Yeah,
when you go back and look at where the alcohol is being sold,
go.
the liquor shops are in those neighborhoods.
That's
And where
right.
do you
And
think the
they're more.
marijuana distributors are going to be?
Absolutely.
In those neighborhoods.
Right.
So it was really a smokescreen and trying to get the attention of people you know, people that believe in social justice, which is, I mean, we believe in social justice
Absolutely.
also.
Right. Yeah.
Right. But I guess that's why it's smart approaches to marijuana.
Smart approaches, you got it.
That's right. Sam, smart approaches to marijuana.
Be smart about it.
Right, be smart.
And Kevin is
right.
Kevin Sabat, who's
Right.
the president of the organization who founded it with Patrick Kennedy, former Congressman Kennedy.
Yeah.
And yeah, Kevin's fantastic. I really enjoyed meeting him and working with him and everybody at SAM. It was a delight. They're at a very important mission in our
Yes.
world right now.
That's right.
It's a tough fight, you know, all over the country.
So what do you think is going to happen here? You think that's going to be back on the agenda next calendar?
Liz Kruger, the senator who wrote the bill, she represents the Upper West Side, by the way.
They're not giving up.
And
They're not going to give up.
yeah, oh yeah, I saw her interviewed. Actually, I was up in Albany for another day after we finished up there. And I saw her, I watched all the news, the local Albany Capitol News, and she was interviewed, and yeah, she's definitely coming back with this.
Yeah.
Yeah,
A
definitely.
lot of money.
Oh,
They
yeah.
think there's money to be made for everyone, the states, but there really isn't.
Right, the revenues are not
Right.
panning out. Like
Right.
they'll predict not a huge revenue, but something,
Right.
and then they're not meeting those marks. I love what Jerry Brown said about it, former Governor Jerry Brown. He didn't want to legalize marijuana in California. He saw that there wasn't going to be any money in it. He knew there'd be costs to society, and I heard him interviewed, and he wanted a more productive. He'd been to China, and was like looking at productivity, and he's like, we're going to legalize, pot in California and have our productivity go
Right,
down. Like,
right.
this doesn't make any sense. And he knew it was really for pleasure and not for revenue. And so
Right.
he has been quoted as saying, we knew we weren't getting any money out of this, and they really haven't.
Right.
The same things happened in Colorado.
Colorado.
Over time, they're pointing to bigger numbers, but and certainly immediately, it's the costs outweigh. I think
Right.
the statistic that rings the most true for me is for every dollar earned in tax revenue, $4.50 is
That's right.
spent in Colorado. That was what I heard.
And you know what? I just hear that.
That's not a good.
No,
No.
no. Right.
And if they were making so much money in Colorado, why did the teachers just strike?
Right. That's the other thing that happens is the revenue's promised
Right.
to certain groups in the state that then don't get it.
Right.
Right. And this became an issue for New York as well because they couldn't agree on these details.
Right.
And so the governor wanted 50% of the revenue for the state fund, right? and then the other 50% to be divided up
Right.
by prevention, treatment, law enforcement, schools,
It's no money.
you know, right? So, and then we found out that the law enforcement costs alone were going to be 50% of the projected revenue.
Right.
Okay.
The projected revenue was something like $350 million, and that's really pie in the sky. We
Right.
don't know what we're going
Right.
to get,
Right.
right? And the Sam did a cost analysis, a law enforcement cost analysis, and we shared this with our legislators in the final week, and said, you need to take a look at this
Right.
because half of the projected revenue is going to be needed for law enforcement
Right.
alone.
Right.
And then all these folks, you know, in the Start Smart group,
Right.
which was one of the big coalitions for legalization in New York, Start Smart New York, I went to one of their panels, and every single one of the person on the panel, we're going to have money for prevention. We're going to have money for this.
Right.
I'm like, yeah, you're all going to get a piece of what pie exactly?
Right,
Like
right.
it just made no
Right.
sense.
Doesn't.
What I took away every time I was with folks like that, even that police chief in Columbia County, who's doing good work, idealism, so loaded with idealism. A dangerous level of it is what I found. I mean, because there's idealism on both sides, but when you talk to and you listen to some of the pro-legalization folks, that was my biggest takeaway, was the amount of idealism they have as opposed to reality.
Right.
They don't have all the facts. They have a vision of
what
what
they'd
it's
like.
going to,
Right.
and it's not
What
necessarily
they'd like it to be.
right,
Right.
exactly.
Well, in reality, they don't know what it's going to be,
Right.
and so because they want this, they want to believe this
Right.
is true.
That's
And
right.
and
That's right.
you know, to talk about prevention and legalization of marijuana in the same breath
You
is quite frustrating. So we're
Right.
happy it didn't pass.
That's right.
And we're really very thrilled about it.
relieved.
I'm really surprised. I'll be honest with you. I thought it was going to pass.
So many people did.
Yeah, I really did.
Right.
So I even
Right.
said that to Kevin.
You did?
You know, I said it to him early on.
Yeah.
Yeah, and he said, "Have some faith." So he was
Yeah.
right. I think I said that to him before you came on, actually.
Okay.
Yeah.
So before then.
Yeah.
And I have you to thank ultimately for all of that, because I remember while I was getting my CASAC education, which
Yeah.
was 2008, 2018, I was doing my
No, go on.
Go
I'm
ahead.
listening.
Okay.
It's just finish up.
Oh,
We're
okay.
out of time, but finish up.
I came to an event you had in Yorktown,
Yeah.
and Ellen Morehouse was speaking.
Right.
and
Right. Jeffrey Beach and us.
Right.
Right. And I was there to meet you guys and do a little networking, and we ended up talking about marijuana. It was already on the table, and it was already in the conversation in New
Right.
York.
Right.
And we talked about it, and I raised my hand and I expressed concerns, and I didn't know where to. I
Right.
think I said to you, well, who's fighting this? How do I join up with the people who are stopping
Then I
it?
You
told
did.
you,
And
and you
That's
did.
it.
There's
That's
that Sam
it.
sheet over there on
There
the
you
table.
go.
And you got the job.
That's
So
right, and you got it done. You and
thank
everyone
you.
else
Thanks
that
very
was
much
there.
for your hard work,
Thank
and
you.
thanks for coming on our
Thank you.
show.